Hey everyone, welcome to the College Lens podcast. I'm Alokika and this is Gavin.
Hey everyone, I'm Gavin. Here at the College Lens, our goal is to target college isolation by bringing different perspectives and journeys that allows listeners to relate and feel a little less alone. Just a reminder, we are not professionals. We're here to listen just like you.
And we really quickly just wanted to thank Aspire Skill Development for supporting us. Now, off to the pod. Hello, hello, hello. This is the College Lens podcast. I'm Alokika and I'm here with your co-host Gavin. And we do not have a guest speaker for you guys today because this is going to be our little reflection, tie the little bow
Conclusion.
kind of
Yeah,
pod. I don't even know what to call it. But
yeah. And I
yeah,
will say it is very sad, very bitter, very bittersweet, more on the
yeah,
bitter side because we loved getting to get together and talk to people, learn and talk about isolation, getting to hear other stories. But I thought, Alakika and I both thought that a great way to conclude would be just do a podcast with us, going over each of the podcasts before, do a little reflection, bringing in a little extra knowledge, something we learned along the way. We're going to do a little in person event reflection and then we'll close it up. So, starting off, Alakika, we should get into our episode reflections.
yeah, absolutely. So let's start off with episode 1, which was From Campus to Continents with Trinity. How that was like, I think, one of the coolest ones too, because we like started off our journey with Trinity and she was so supportive and awesome about it. Like it was like us going in with like a blind, like completely blind, like not knowing what we wanted to do with this podcast. But because of her, we kind of like got to know what kind of structure we wanted and what are the things that we wanted to include that like really wanted like other people to know about too. So, yeah. What did you
Yeah,
think?
I completely agree. I thought that was our first podcast, and it was definitely came with its challenges. There were some technical difficulties in the midst of that episode that we had to work around. I
Yeah.
had never edited anything before, so the aftermath of editing that podcast was crazy as well. But for the podcast itself, that was Trinity. She studied abroad, correct?
Yeah. She
Yes.
studied abroad and then she actually did the podcast when she was in Guatemala, which is
Mm,
crazy. That is so cool.
yeah. It was really cool to see how study abroad can help, but also create isolation. And
Yeah.
so it's another opportunity to go and meet people and travel with people, but it could also be scary and isolating.
Yeah. And kudos to Gavin, guys, who has been doing a fantabulous job with all the editing and all of that with our podcasts.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's go to episode 2, Business as Usual with Erica and Caroline. That one was a fun one
Yes.
too. That one was like our multiple speaker one, which was very interesting and it was really cool to hear.
Yeah, I remember at this point in the podcast, we were a little worried that we weren't going to be able to have the length we needed in the podcast. So we ended up bringing in two speakers, and we absolutely loved it. We had so much content, so much information. We had a ton of fun, a ton of good laughs, and I personally liked talking on the business side of things a little bit.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just I personally enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, I really liked talking about like we also talk about this in our other podcasts, which we will also go over, but like starting off that trend of talking about like how business is very different than what people think it is. Like when people hear like, "Oh, you're a business major," like life is so easy for you. Like you literally go partying and you do this, that, blah 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 blah. But like there's so much more to that and like
Right.
I agree that we don't do like labs and stuff, but at the same time, like we have equivalent things. I might get hated on for this, but
No,
but
no,
it is. I mean, there's a fair amount of things that we gotta do too. That is like, I mean, finance and stuff. Like,
it's a different kind of difficult. I would
yeah,
say like
yeah,
nursing and science majors, they have so much to. They have labs, they have a ton of homework, they
yeah,
have, in my opinion, more difficult subjects like anatomy and whatever else. I'm sure that's just like the surface of it all. But
yeah,
for
yeah,
business, there's a lot more pressure on making connections, being able to present and speak very clearly and very well it's just a different side of life and skill sets that are just you can't necessarily compare them and say one is more difficult than the other. But for some people it is, for some people it isn't.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, moving on to episode 3, which is Adaptive Ambitions with Anisi.
Yes, I remember this episode very vividly because we got to see Nisi's dog a little bit at the end. I know
Yes.
it's kind of random, but
Yeah.
I really liked that.
Shout out to Maverick. He's super cute. I know that one was very I got a lot of really good insight and feedback from the audience for that one because they really liked that we included someone who represented the disability community and talked about their experiences and perspective on college life and obstacles that they have to face. So that was definitely one of my favorites and that we got to share a little bit of that to everybody.
Yeah, it's always really fun to just hear somebody's story, no matter what perspective they're coming from, because everybody's life is a little bit different, and it is really cool.
Exactly, and you like don't really get to like think about other people's like viewpoint in life and how what they go through on a day-to-day basis and how they deal with that. So I think that was super cool and it was actually one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, episode 4, Beyond the Dorms with Chris. That one was super fun too. We got a little bit of a perspective on RA life.
Yeah, I really enjoyed interviewing Chris. It was personally my favorite, just because Chris was it was the only person that I actually brought who I knew personally. And it was really cool because Chris goes to my school, CCU, hearing his perspective on TCU and stress and being an RA versus some people from CU Boulder. And we even had someone later from um, GCU. That's what it is. And
Yeah.
so just seeing different perspectives from different schools and seeing how Chris is an RA, how he's been here for a couple years, he's a junior. He just has some great perspective on everything.
Yeah, a lot of people think that like RA's jobs are just to be like that little guard or whatever to like oh get you caught if you're having too much fun or like doing that. But I think Chris definitely gave us a little bit more than that and gave us the perspective of having those connections with the people
Hmm.
in your dorm or in your apartment in your guys' case and how to really foster that connection with someone, especially when they're starting a whole new chapter called college, and you've been there and you've experienced that. So that was really cool.
Yeah, you're totally right. An RA's job is not only to be a guard, but help people feel less isolated, help build those relationships.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, episode 5, Fresh Beginnings with Grace Trujillo.
Yeah, this was a great episode too. There was a lot of business talk here as well.
Yeah. Um, I definitely, when she talked about like having your own schedule and making that can be really isolating, I really resonated with that because I've never actually seen it that way too. Because like you think about it, you do the same thing every single day, and like sometimes it happens so that like you're like your route patterns are the same too. Like you see the same people when you're going to this
Hmm.
class because they're going to their class and they take that route. So I think like I mean that can be great in some aspects, but that can also be isolating because you feel like you're in this cycle that is
Hmm.
like never ending, and especially with like stress and stuff like that with finals and midterms, that can definitely hone on for sure.
Yeah, you need to spice up your life a little bit occasionally. Go hang out with friends, go out, get some ice cream, do whatever you need to do. I also want to talk about scheduling a little bit. I know we talked about how at the beginning of the year it felt so overwhelming because you get all of the syllabus from all of your classes and you can see every single assignment you have for the entire year. And I know for me, I was warned that it would feel overwhelming, but I didn't fully comprehend how stressful it was actually going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And then like that really great like it perfectly like segues into what I was saying because like you see all those things and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, like we have so much more to do and like this is not the
Hmm.
end." Like that's why I'm like a little like nervous about like other summers that we're gonna have because this summer we're freshmen, so we're not gonna have much to do because of internships and stuff. But next summer when we're gonna have internships and then right after we're gonna have to go back to school, I'm
Hmm.
a little nervous about that because it's gonna be the same cycle over and over again. But I
Yeah,
guess that's
it'll be
just life.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Episode 6, Semester at Sea with Ezra. That was a lot of fun.
Yes.
We
This was
learned a lot.
interesting.
Yeah. You and I learned a lot with that one.
Yeah. I didn't even know semester at sea was a thing before we interviewed. And so learning about it and hearing all of the ins and the outs and the stresses and the good things about it, it sounded like study abroad on crack.
Yeah, literally, literally. And like at first, when you hear about like semester at sea, you're like, oh, a cruise, and then you're like, oh, a college life, and then add them together, like that's like double the triple the quadruple fun.
Hmm.
But then the fact that she like told us about the isolation part of it, which you would never have expected because you're always together with people constantly. And so that was very like I definitely took a lot from that episode because like the digital isolation too. Like you and I never even thought about that. Like if you want to
Hmm.
go ask someone, hey, like you want to go get dinner, like you can't because you don't have Wi-Fi or network
Yeah.
over there.
You can't just text them. You have to go over and actually find the person you want to hang out with. And if they're not in their room, you don't know where to go look.
Exactly, exactly. And like even if it is on a ship, like a ship is pretty big and there's a lot of things that's going on. I really did think that it was cool that they do their classes like in the cafeteria or like the showroom or whatever she said. Like that's dope. Like I would love to do that.
I disagree. I think doing class in the same place that I eat or hang out with people, I wouldn't like it. I think I'd get distracted or
That is true
just
too.
not enjoy it as much.
That is true too. Yeah. Both aspects of things. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Okay, episode 7, Striving for the Peak with Jeremy Quintana.
Yes, another very business-esque podcast.
For sure. I think this one was very much focused on him like talking about his experience as well as coming out of that and striving for literally the peak, which is the best. Like he is so determined. He has everything down, what he wants to do. He knows the balance between having fun, making the best out of college, but also making the best out of college academically and professionally for his future and career and how to just be a billionaire. Isn't that what he said?
I think that's what his goal was, which
Yeah.
is very ambitious, but I feel like he can do it. It
Yeah.
was it was interesting because he was doing a lot. It seemed like he wasn't overwhelmed, but had a lot on his plate and just had a very full life. And he shared a little bit how that can be stressful and that can be overwhelming. And having good people around you, smarter people than you, to help elevate and lift you up day after day.
Exactly. And I hadn't even seen college as a rat race like he mentioned because he was like college is like a rat race and I do agree. I don't know if what you think about this, Gavin, but like for us when you go to a school like this that is very much like it's very competitive for us, especially in the
Hmm.
business school. But at the same time, we are also a party school, and we are very much of a football fan school.
Yeah,
So we're very much involved in a lot of things, and sometimes when we're involved in a lot of things, people do get lost in that
yeah.
and get like deviated from the track. So I do kind of agree that yeah, college is kind of a rat race, and if you make it to the end, well, you won, I guess.
Yeah, I think it can go both ways. I think if it is a rat race, you want to make sure you don't get lost in just the
Mhm.
process. Because if you
Yeah.
just get lost in the system and that every single day I do this, this, and this. Oh, Friday football game, Saturday football game, Sunday sleep in, do homework, and then next week it repeats. I think you need to be really careful not to make it like a rat race and make everything a little bit different. So you're not similar to going back a couple podcasts, not seeing the same people every day, spice it up, do something different. If you make it to the end, good on you. I mean, finishing college is a really, really important thing, but I don't think it has to be necessarily the same thing every day and you
Exactly.
racing and competing against everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I do feel like if you're very, very much into like I mean, yes, goal setting is very important and having
Hmm.
long-term goal is very important. But sometimes when we do that, like if something happens that was not according to plan, that could very much also set you back, both mentally and like in
Hmm.
your career track. So I think it's also very important to see both sides of things and keep that in mind as well. So definitely a very, very powerful episode for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, episode 8, perspective, or power of perspective with Roy.
Yes, I remember Roy. He was a senior. He was about to graduate. Do you remember
Mm-hmm.
what his majors were?
Finance, accounting, info management. Yeah, I know info management is in there, but
Info management. Yeah,
yeah.
it was more, he started as computer science and then kind of started developing from there, which I think speaks a lot to people who change their majors a couple of times. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Like you're
Yeah,
allowed to change your major. Please, 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 I would encourage everybody watching right now, don't stick with something because you feel like you have to. Learn
exactly.
about something you enjoy learning about. Try and work somewhere you enjoy working. That'll make your life so much better in the long run. No one wants to sit in a cubicle and do something they don't want to be doing for the rest of their life. Find something you enjoy and pursue that.
Exactly.
And it's okay if it takes you 4 or 5 years. It's completely okay.
Yeah, exactly. I also really liked how he gave an example about his kitchen almost burning down and he didn't have renter's insurance and
Yes.
he could have easily like given up, throw like had a fit and like,
Hmm.
looked at it in that way, but then he changed his perspective and said at least it was the kitchen. It was not the whole, apartment and stuff like that. And I think that speaks a lot about the character that he is and how he sees things, and that's why I like really like the title for him, Power of Perspective, because you can literally change the way you see things and it'll literally give you a fresh perspective on how you look in life.
Yeah, it's all about reframing the right things. Something bad
Exactly.
happens, try and find the good.
Ex-
If you have a stressful week, hey, at least it's going to be an easy week after that. Like finding the good in everything bad is so important. Now, it's okay to embrace the bad things because bad things are going to happen. You need to be able to deal with that. But finding a good thing and being able to encourage yourself, even when your mental is down,
Yeah.
it's just so important. And Roy showed that very well.
Yeah. All right, episode 9, Navigating the Bubble of Life with Delaney. That one was a fun
Yes, with
one too.
she was a fellow accounting finance major.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I know I've said about all the business majors that have come on. I just enjoy business and finance so much. So I learned a lot from that podcast, especially finance and accounting wise.
Yeah, I know. And it was really fun to talk about our little, I think it was McDonald's, not McDonald's, KFC, right? In Japan or something. That was
Yep.
when we had that conversation. That was cool because she's involved in a lot of things. And I think I
Hmm.
did mention about how we met. We met at like a scholarship event. And I was like so stunned with all the accomplishments that she had before then. And I also really appreciated how she talked about her experience with isolation, especially starting off as a freshman, which I know we did talk a little bit about with Grace as well, but
Hmm.
it was nice to see with a different perspective and a different story, and which basically sums it up, saying that like everybody has different experiences and perspective on college, and there
Yes.
are different ways of isolation that you don't really think about.
And then along with that, the power of a connection that you might not even know
Mhm.
is important. Like you met Delaney before, or you both knew you're going to Boulder, but you didn't know that each other are going to Boulder.
Yeah,
And so you met, you both figured out you're going to the same school, and a couple months later, you reached out, and she's like, "Yeah, I'll totally be on your podcast." That's a little connection that might have felt insignificant in the moment, but was so important and so awesome.
exactly, exactly. And episode 10, when we have posted this, it will be out, but for now, when we're recording, we don't have it out yet. So right now it's the Untitled podcast. But episode 10 has been like one of my favorites too, because we had our guest speaker from freaking Australia, which is so cool. He has the Australian accent and everything, guys. Like for real, for real.
Yeah, it was a really fun podcast to record. Uh, it was really really interesting to see how different his experience is from U.S. to Australia. I never even knew how different it could be. even little things from we call college, they call it university. Most people don't travel out of state to go to university in Australia. A lot of little things that you don't think about are different
Yeah.
there.
And apparently the coffee is so good over there. So we're gonna have to try it sometime. And a cup of tea is actually called a cuppa. And Gavin and I didn't know that.
We didn't know that. We went through a little embarrassing thing there when he said he was gonna go get a cuppa, and Malkika and I looked at each other like, "What? What's he saying? What even is that?"
Yeah. So, and it was also very like a lot of fun when he was talking about his experience with coming to America and all the things that he tried and all the things that he didn't like. What was one thing that he liked? I think you know what candy that is.
He said, yeah, he
Right?
said Mike and Ike's were amazing. He said Mike and
Right.
Ike's were amazing. He also said that the chocolate here was more bitter than the chocolate in Australia. So, fun fact.
Really? Oh yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have to try it out. No, cause I don't know if you've seen like I see some like YouTubers talk about Vegemite, which is kind of like the Nutella there, but it's like different. And I'm like, interesting. So we
Yeah,
need to maybe
I don't
try
know.
it out sometime.
It's hard to sum up that podcast. We were all over the place. I
I
would just
know.
suggest going and checking it out
Yeah,
for
for
yourself.
real. But we'll hopefully have a good title for that soon, guys. Don't worry. And hopefully you
Yeah,
like it too. But okay,
yeah.
well, that sums up all of our episodes. And I think we have learned a lot. We have heard a lot.
Yes. Overall, it's like we learn things from out of the country, from study abroad, semester at sea, other freshmen, some RAs. There's experiences from all over. And in every single example, there's isolation. In every single example, there's some form of isolation, whether it's physical or psychological. There's different ways they feel isolated, different methods to feel less isolated, certain patterns and certain schedules that just there's so many different ways someone can feel isolated, and we tried our very best to get
Yeah,
that diverse experience to help everyone relate in some way, shape, or form.
yeah. I mean, you just did a fantabulous job summing that up. So let's move on to our next little segment, which is our professional interview reflection. So, Gavin, you want to explain what that is?
Yeah, I'd love to. So recently, Alukika and I met with a professional. You can kind of dive in a little bit more as to what her credentials were,
Mm-hmm.
but we broke down isolation in college down to very, very minute details. There's physical symptoms, mental symptoms, certain things to look out for, a lot of backlash that comes with isolation. I can read out a couple crazy symptoms without addressing isolation. There's some times where the severity is stroke, heart disease, dementia, self harm, and even a premature death, which is very, very harsh, but that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, so to basically kind of rewind just a tad bit, we interviewed, she's a mental health professional who works here in CU Boulder, where I go, and her name is Sally Lowell. She's awesome. And yeah, she was talking to us about some really like deep information and knowledge about isolation. And let's just say that you guys need to like really like keep into mind when you're isolated and try to get out of it, because not to scare you or anything, but there might be a stroke or heart disease in your future if you're not gonna figure it out.
Yeah, that would be some like long-term damage that happens. But
Yeah.
essentially, the two main realms of isolation are social isolation, which is lack of interaction, you're not physically around other people. And the other type would be lonely or psychological isolation, which is a need for love and a need for care not being met. This could be you being around people and you're surrounded by friends, but they're not actually engaging with you or asking how you are or what you're up to, or if you're having problems and no one is finding out about that, that would be some psychological isolation. And it really compounds on top of the top concerns in college, which is stress and anxiety. So the
Mm,
stress, the anxiety leads to the isolation and other way around. And there's just so many problems. I'm reading off a lot of my notes right now.
yeah, same.
Um, some physical symptoms of either of those isolations are an upset stomach, poor sleep, bad eating. Now, let me just say, poor sleep and bad eating, we're all in college here. So that doesn't necessarily
Exactly.
mean you're isolated,
Yeah,
but if you notice you're consistently getting bad sleep, fix the sleep schedule. Bad eating needs to be fixed because overall, like just take care of your body. If your body isn't
exactly.
healthy, your mind isn't going to be healthy, and it's going to just lead to some bad stuff.
Mm-hmm. And if you're a friend or a colleague or administrator, actually wait, I'll get to the administrator one later. But if you're like a friend or a peer, just and like the symptoms that you should look out for in others who you think might be going through isolation are like if they feel sick all the time or they're oversleeping or undersleeping, just all you have to do is like, hey, do you want to go out for a walk or like do you want to do
Hmm.
this? Instead of just going to be like, are you okay? Because that's a very heavy sentence, and I know like a lot of us think that that's the way to go, but we we were told that kind of stay away from that and kind of start like with like small steps of trying to understand what's happening instead of just like going in and be like, hey, are you okay? Like you don't seem well to me. Like, are you isolated? Like, what's going on? Another really important thing for educators and administrators that they should look out for is good to bad performance. So if a student is really, really good, like started off good and they're on top of their game, but then they start slowly, gradually, like start what's the right word for this? Like
If a student is performing really well, and
yeah,
then
and
all of a
then
sudden kind of flips the
yeah,
switch.
yeah, exactly. Thanks. So if they start doing that, then you start instead of being like, oh, you're slacking off, there's more to that story. So try to really connect with the student and see what's happening. And then I'm sure they don't really mean to really tank that grade. And then how is our culture shaped our isolation, Gavin?
Yes, this is a very interesting thing. Isolation is so common today because of how divided our culture is.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their own opinion, their own ideologies, and that's okay. Alakik and I have different beliefs, different perspectives, and the way to combat isolation is being open to hearing what other people say without putting walls up and immediately striking back with what you feel. You want to genuinely see others' perspectives. The more open we are to hearing and understanding others, the less divided we're going to be. We can find happy medians. We can figure out ways to live with people and talk to people who don't believe the same things we believe. That's totally
Exactly.
okay. And it's so
Yeah.
frustrating when someone goes out and shares what they believe and people just attack them for it. It's really frustrating. And that's what primarily leads to isolation.
Exactly. And college is basically a trial for real life. It's like an intro to real life for everybody who is in college, whether they're freshmen, sophomore, juniors, or seniors. So like people will not remind you of anything. You have to get like take care of your own self. Like what the biggest thing that Gavin and I have really learned throughout our whole podcast journey right now is people will not remind you of anything. If you're in isolation and if you're thinking that you have these symptoms and you're going down this road, you need to make a U-turn somehow and really work for it. And we're not saying it's easy. There's no way that it is easy. There's a lot of
Mhm,
pressure and competing priorities with
mhm.
school, friends, etc. But how can you really make this achievable if you do it for yourself and if you really want to do it for yourself and the future of you, you know?
Yes, exactly. You just go look out, try and figure out what opportunities you have. You need to take everything one step at a time. And again, I'm just reading off my notes a little bit. Even if it's with a close friend, say you're feeling physically isolated, you don't want to go out and meet new people because it's scary. I get it. It can be scary to go meet new people, but try and find that one close friend you have, go try new stuff. Go with that one close friend to a new club or just out to meet and go meet new people. You have that like safe person. So you should both go branch out together.
Exactly. All it takes is that one step. And even if that step makes you uncomfortable, it's just gonna be uncomfortable for like that one tiny second. And then once you have that friend or that connection, it's gonna make you feel so much better, especially in the future. Your future self would be like, good job, you. Like, you
Hmm.
made that step, you took that step, and look where that got you, you know? And that's how you, even if it's not a best friend, like you have connections who will be there with you. So,
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
another thing that we need to really emphasize is that colleges, all colleges across the board, have support and resources for you if you need it medically and professionally. If things aren't working out, they're designed to help you succeed without just giving you an answer. And I know a lot of times it, like, if even if you have tried all the things that we have talked about, it is fine. You can go to a professional, and it's not a bad thing. No one's gonna shame you for it.
Yeah, exactly. And that about sums up our professional
Okay.
interview. We learned a lot. I know there's some specifics in there, like the symptoms and the
I
outcome
wouldn't
if you
take
don't
that to
address
I
it.
wouldn't take that to heart, guys. Don't listen to that too much. Don't worry about that too much.
Just understand that being isolated is it's not a great thing. So do your best if you notice it to reach out and do everything you can to not be isolated because it is really important.
Yeah. Already. Now transitioning to our in-person event reflection, which I know a lot of you saw our if you were there in person, you saw us and met us through there, or if you have been the OGs, you saw that we did do an in-person event. So through our in-person events, we asked people to write little advices for people going through college isolation, and I have like some really good ones here, and I know Gavin does too. So
Mhm.
I think we should share some of them, don't you think?
Yeah, but before I fully dive into the card, I just want to say if you did go, thank you so much for stopping by,
Yes.
chatting a little bit. If you wrote a card, thank you for that. And I hope you enjoy the College Lens tumblers because I know they ran out so fast.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, you guys. Okay, do you want to go first? I know you only like,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I picked out three of not the most important, but in my opinion, the three most um, achievable cards that were written down. The first one is if you are feeling isolated, other people have gone through this before. There's hundreds of millions of people who have also felt isolated and currently feel isolated. So you don't need to feel alone in feeling isolated. It's not completely on you. The other really important thing is to join a club. There's so many different opportunities. There's so many places that people just like you go to meet and do something they love. You could go to a chess club, or if you like baseball or investing, a baseball club, an investment club. There's a ton of different places you can go to meet people with the same interest you do. And then, last but not least, when you feel isolated, just reach out, be bold, text someone. It's going to work out in the end as long as you do something about it. If you leave isolation, you're going to keep feeling isolated. So be bold, do your best. You got this.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I have like three and a half. And that's because like two of them are like the same thing but intertwined. So I'm gonna start off with the first two. The first one says, "You're not alone. Count me in." And I just thought that was so wholesome. So yes, you're not alone. There are people like you who are going through this, and you guys will make it out just fine. And
Mhm.
it's like that TikTok, just trust me, you'll be fine. That one, it's stuck in my head. I'm sorry, I had to. Okay, the second one, don't give up. Remember, it's your world and everyone else is living in it. That one's a pretty good one. And then, okay, and then the one that's intertwined is the first one is JOMO, not FOMO, joy of missing out. And then the other one says, FOMO is good. Do everything you can, and it'll work out in the end. So, and I will be posting these on Instagram. So if you missed out, you can repost because you never know, someone might want to see it.
Yeah, it's important. Those little comments mean the world to some people. And
Exactly.
to touch on the FOMO JOMO comment, just do whatever is best for you. If you need a night in, then be happy having night in and watching TV. If you've been in all week and you need to go out and hang out, go out, find something to do. Don't be scared that you're not going to have fun. Just go for it. Take the jump.
Ex- Exactly. And before we go to our little next conclusion thing, I do want to kind of talk about our mini mics because they have been a huge part of our Instagram and kind of just connecting with people. I've had a lot of fun, especially like just asking silly questions to people, random people, and it guys, it has taken a lot into me and Gavin for going out to random people. Okay, so it's just been so cool to just see people really support us, even though we're just strangers, with the little tiny mic, be like, hey, you want to be in our mini mic for our podcast? And so, yeah, I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I will say, I think before we conclude, a really good little last segment is what's something, Alakika, you personally have grown in since starting the podcast, whether it's like speaking to new people or understanding how a podcast works. Like, what do you think you've gotten better at through this whole process?
Oh man, I think overall this has been one of my favorite experiences I've done, for sure. I've met so many amazing people and I've reached out to them. Like all the people that you guys have seen for each of the podcasts, I've reached out to them personally, even though I don't know them. And that was really like at first I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get canceled. Like this girl is being weird and asking to be on our podcast. But then they did, and then they had a blast. So that was like a huge experience, kind of. And one like disclaimer, I am a overthinker, guys, so Gavin had to literally be like, literally sit down, it's not that big of a deal, like, so that has also been like a learning experience for me. So yeah, definitely like trying to do this podcast from the starting, trying to figure out the name for the podcast, doing the logo that we did together, and then now doing this wrap up episode. I guess it's just been a whole learning curve. What about you, Gavin?
Yeah, there's been so much that I've grown in since starting the podcast. I don't know if anybody watching knows this, but this is through Aspire, our internship, and we get feedback and they nitpick the little things, the things we do good, things we do bad. And that feedback has been extremely helpful. Even
Mm,
leaving room for other people to talk. I know Alakuk and I both can be pretty chatty at times. So when other people are talking, letting a minute of silence kind of sit there just to let the point either sink in or give the opportunity for our guest speaker to jump in and give even more insight. That's been something that I've learned and I've really grown in, as well as being able to just hold a conversation with people, just learning people's new experiences, whether I agree or don't agree, just being able to understand and see new perspectives. That is something that has been really helpful for me as well.
exactly. And for us being complete strangers and doing this thing together is also
Mhm.
like it was so much fun and we both learned so much from each other and it was a great experience. Now, the real question is there a possibility we'll bring this back?
Maybe.
Maybe is the answer. Because life gets crazy. So maybe is the answer. And if we do, then it'll be another really fun journey that we'll embark
Exactly.
together. So yeah, well, this is our final episode, you guys. This was the College Lens. My name is Alukika Patro, and I'm here with Gavin Floyd, and we will see you hopefully sometime soon. Okay, bye.
Bye.